Okay, well, we are live and we're going to assume we're live. So, welcome to episode 22 of the Practical Magic Show. Today's guest is Mark Silverman, a absolutely true magician. Mark is a coach, he's a best-selling author. You are a master of life, and I'm really excited to learn from you in this conversation today. So, our topic today is mastering improbable odds for a magical life. So it'll be really fun to kind of pick apart those different elements and experience how you see them. Because to me, magic and the whole point of the Practical Magic Show, magic is, to me, it's people who operate outside of the norm, who operate specifically outside of the normal conditioning and logic, and happen to create lives that appear to be better than everybody else's. And are able to do more and create things that, really do look remarkable. And you are a remarkable person. So thank you for being here.
I will hang out with you any day. Got my coffee ready to go.
That's kind of what I was thinking, honestly, as I was coming up, we were leading up to this conversation. I was equally excited just to hang out with you as to, be in the context that we're in.
So this is going to be fun either way.
That's right. And we don't know what's going to happen, and that's perfect. So, I'd actually love to hear from you, because I know when we first connected, you didn't necessarily consider yourself as magical. But what do you, a little bit of an echo here. I don't know if that's on your side or my side. Let me just.
I know. I hear you. I hear your echo.
Yeah. Let me see 1 second. Do we still hear the echo?
No, actually, I think you fixed it.
That was pure guessing.
Good job.
So what do you consider a magical life? Because the definition is changing for me the longer I'm doing this show.
It's interesting because when you did the introduction and talked about the magical life I live, I think I'm a little different than some of your former guests. And I think I'm a little different than a lot of people in the transformational world that you and I live in, because I feel like I keep one foot in real life and one foot in magic. And I feel like my gift is bridging that gap. So I like to go into glass buildings and work with corporate people, with business people in their environment. And I like to teach them leadership skills, and I teach them all the kinds of things that they need in order to be successful, get promotions, lead their organizations, that kind of thing. I don't advertise any of the magic. I advertise very practical, very bread and butter kind of things. What happens is magical. If you look behind me, I have all kinds of stuff here. Like I got Buddhist stuff. I've got, I'm in the magical world. But to translate that into the real world so that people who haven't picked up an Eckhart Tolle book or a Byron Katie book or isn't meditating every day can actually have access to the kinds of things you and I take for granted and play with every day.
Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the things that makes me like you so much, because you are, I love being a coach. I love being a part of the coaching world. And sometimes I forget, like, everyone in the world is not a coach, and there is this whole other life that exists beyond the transformational world. And I think what is so fantastic about you is that you are doing such great things in your life and in the world. And you are so grounded and down to earth and relatable.
I'm a dad. Like that's when you're a dad, you're done. Like it doesn't get any more real than that. You're one of the things I learned being a parent. My son was at college, and he called me up and he said, "Dad, I want to ask your permission. I'm going to buy a shotgun." And I'm like, "You're going to buy a shotgun?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Don't worry, I'm going to get a locker. I got a place to keep it. I can do all." And he's more mature and responsible than either my ex-wife or I have ever been. So, if he's going to do something, he's going to do it right. But it's funny because, I didn't grow up with guns. I didn't have them grow up with guns. He drives a pickup truck, has a shotgun. And then I said, "So by the way, where's your brother, Jake?" Jake was visiting him at college, and Jake was supposed to be at his dorm room because Jake was grounded. He's like, "Oh, Jake is over at the other college with his friends partying." And I hang up the phone and I'm like, "God damn it. I didn't have children. I made 2 new people.
Yeah.
There's nothing I am going to do to make them anything other than what they are." So yeah, magic meets reality every day of my life.
Yeah. And I mean, I think for me, when I started this show, I was really looking at the external success part. It was like, people who have created really awesome external success. Oh, and they happen to be happy. And now it's shifting to like, wait a minute, I feel like you know something I don't, because you look like super happy, like light inside. And oh, by the way, you also happen to create some really awesome stuff. So that for me, that's what's switching. And I don't know if you mind, but I think just in the context of improbable odds, will you share a little bit of your backstory? You can share long, medium, short version, whatever you want.
Yeah. I was just talking to someone about that I'm kind of known for my backstory, and how do I shed my backstory, and how do people stop talking about my overcoming such adversity to become who I am, so I can talk about the things I've learned and my expertise and all that. But it's, intrinsically connected. I was a drunk, I was an alcoholic and a drug addict. But, by the time I hit high school, I was homeless and 130 some odd pounds. When I was 27 years old, and I rolled into town living in my truck. So, I really wasn't a going human concern, as they say. So getting sober, going to college in my 30s and 40s and getting a college degree, never making more than 20 some odd $1,000 a year in my entire life. And then getting a job as a salesman, and being a rabid introvert and scared of bothering people, becoming successful as a sales guy, and doubling my income, and then doubling my income, and doubling my income, right? So I'm making upper six figures, and I'm really kind of crushing that piece. Now I find myself living in a really expensive neighborhood with 2.5 kids, picket fence, and a Lexus convertible, that kind of thing. It was all foreign to me. Like, I didn't catch up to that. So for me, overcoming that was improbable. There was no reason for me to get sober. There was no reason for me to get sane. There was no reason for me to get married and have kids, because there was just all the odds were against me ever doing anything normal. And when every time I accomplished something, and every time I was seen as making it in the real world, it was always a surprise to me. My ex-wife once said to me, "You have no idea how people see you, do you?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? I'm just kind of a goofball." And I always saw myself as a waiter, bartender, just scraping by, instead of a successful businessman, and a leader. I just never thought of myself that way. So it's an interesting juxtaposition. So now to sit here and talk about mastering midlife and self-mastery and leadership skills and all those things, it's very ironic that I talk about these things.
And what is the reason I really am interested in bringing in the backstory is because I can relate to a lot of it myself.
Oh, you lived in your truck too?
I didn't live in my truck, but I grew up, my parents were alcoholics, and I, every day, and I still to this day, like, struggle to be in a restaurant, because I'm like, am I going to be back here? Like, I still see myself as a struggling waitress. So I really get that part of the, like, trying to get your identity to match up to what your life actually kind of would mirror back to you if you were to look at it more objectively. But I think also specifically why I love hearing your backstory is because it's not like I'm overcoming improbable odds every day. Like, couldn't be further from the truth. But sometimes it can feel like that, even when there isn't some massive thing to overcome.
Well, let's just look at today.
Yeah.
It feels almost impossible to thrive these days. If you ever turn on the news, it's a barrage of things you should be scared of, things that are concerning. Some of them very real, some of them spun up. Then you talk to other people who you know and love and care about, and they're concerned about the exact opposite thing you're concerned about. Some of us are concerned about COVID, and some of us are concerned about the oppression of masks, right? So we go back, like vaccine, no vaccine, Black Lives Matters, people are rioting in the streets, right? Back and forth. So you really can't, people these days can't get ground. Right now, when I see two economies, I see poor, I take food to the food bank, and I see lines around the block for the food bank. But then I go to the mall, and I see the mall jam freaking packed with people buying iPhones and Apple Watches. It's really hard, I think, for people these days to get ground. Now the conversation is going with a lot of the leaders that I work with is they're coming back to the office. But some of their people don't want to come back to the office. Some people want to come back to the office and they're not vaccinated. Like, how do you deal with this on a daily basis? I cannot imagine having children right now and trying to figure out how to do hybrid home learning, and live with the uncertainty of an outbreak, and then we have to be home. But no, now we're going to go to school. So I think there's a lot of insurmountability to life these days.
And I love that you brought that up, because how do you create a life that feels magical in an environment?
For me, I took everything seriously for a really long time. Life was very heavy for me for a very long time. I spent most of my life trying to make up for being a screw up. I spent most of my life trying to prove that I am a viable human. And even when the external facts said that I was that way, internally, it just never felt, and it always felt like it's hanging by a thread. And one day, my friend Phil Goddard, from halfway across the world, he's another coach in our community. He said he wanted to coach me. He was meditating. And he was thinking about me. I'm like, okay, here we go. Another coach wants to coach me. Anyway, Phil calls me up and he says, Mark, I just think about you. You're successful with what you do. I love what you wrote your books and all these cool things, but there's a heaviness about you. And I'm like, you're damn right. There's a heaviness about me. There's a lot, there's a lot going on. There's a lot to do. And I'm really always fighting that demon inside of me that wants me to screw things up. I wish I could say that I was free of the self-destructive stuff, but that's always walked right beside me no matter what I've done. I'll get to what I did with that in a minute, but after Phil talked to me, he talked to me about kind of love and spirituality, and he recommended a book to me. He doesn't remember ever recommending this book. And the book was The Power of Undoing, or something like that, by a guy named Fred Davis, and it was about non-duality. And I'm reading this book, and I meditate, and I'm Buddhist, Zen Buddhist tradition, and all that, and I've really came to a peace with life, even though it was hard. But in reading this book, I really kind of started to eat up this whole non-duality thing. And then I started reading book after book after book. And then one day I was sitting on my meditation cushion, and the whole thing fell away. The whole fight to create Mark as whoever he was, the energy I have expended since I can remember in defending, creating, making sure Mark was a certain way, even though I was failing, even when I was drunk and, homeless. I spent my whole life trying to keep up something that didn't even exist. I was given my name, Mark. Like, I was told my name was Mark. I was told all my history. I was told I'm this kind of a person. I'm an asthmatic kid. You're a sickly kid. You weren't supposed to live. All these things, right? And I was sitting there and I went, oh my God, that whole thing is made up. The whole thing. Mark doesn't even exist. And I sat there disoriented. I wish I could say it was like the light lifted, but I was disoriented because I was like, oh my God, everything went into this. And that's when the freedom came in. And I realized that I was worried about everything that was out of my control. And I realized the phrase, who you are has never been born and who you are will never die. I realized I'm that whatever has never been born and will never die. So I stopped worrying so much about Mark and whether Mark had enough money, whether Mark was going to get sick, whether Mark was going to die, whether Mark was going to fuck up. Excuse me, this is live on social media.
Fine, it's my name if you want.
So I stopped worrying about all that stuff. And I realized that no matter what happened, I'm okay. If I get hit by a car tomorrow, I'm okay. Right? If something happened to my children, God forbid, I'm okay. I'll grieve. It'll be horrible, right? That kind of thing. But I can't be touched because who I am is ineffable. And that was an experience. That wasn't something I just read in a book. And that was when the weight lifted. So when you see the twinkle in my eye or whatever, I can actually own that I am free from that. Now, do I get self-conscious when I'm about to speak on a stage? Absolutely. All these things happen. I just don't care anymore. Like, oh my God, it's so funny. Look at you. You're so self-conscious. Look at you. You were sweating during that workshop, and and those people were asking those questions and you didn't know the answer. Of course that goes on. I'm vain. I want to look good, right? I want to be thin and all that stuff, but I don't take it so seriously anymore. And that to me is magic, to not be so worried about everything in life, whether I'm successful or not. It's now a game. All our coaches who you and I have in common have talked about making this a game, but it never made any sense to me because it was a game with consequences that were life and death, whether it was life and death in real life or it was life and death to my reputation. And now, oh my God, it's a game. Wow. Right? I don't really have to do anything. Like there's just nothing I have to do. There's some things I'd like to do. I don't want to be homeless, so I'll go make money, but I don't have to do any of it. It's all choice. Now the keys to the jail cell are unlocked.
I mean, that's just so like, I want to like jump through the screen into your brain, absorb it all, and then come back home. Because I can so relate to the feeling of heaviness that like walking around and feeling things being held on by a thread. And it's what I'm working so much with Devin on, to kind of just shed that. And it's happening. But I think that's the twinkle. You can see it, like you're playful with life.
Yeah, it was hard fought and hard won, and it's fleeting also. There are moments when that goes away and things seem very, very real. Yeah. And to use that homing device to stop identifying so much with this thing, Mark, and identify with something more ineffable. It's a practice. It's a homing device to be able to get to it.
And get back to it, I guess, when you do fall back into the mark.
Always, and with Only Tens, my time and energy management book and all that, it's more about getting back on the horse than it is not falling off the horse. It's not about getting so organized that you never, get overwhelmed again. It's when you're overwhelmed, how do you get unoverwhelmed? For me, I can only, fix myself when I fall.
Yeah.
I walk around the manhole every once in a while, right? And I've learned my lesson every once in a while. But, for me, Mark is pretty imperfect and falls in the manhole way too often.
It's like he doesn't seem to walk down the other street yet. One of my, I really like this idea of, I think I want to explore this idea a little bit of, it's more about the getting back on the horse than never falling off, because one of my declaration, and one of them is I'm a world-class athlete. I forgot that I was an athlete, actually. Like I completely forgot. I have high school track records, like I was a freaking athlete. And I just, then I turned into a college girl who wanted to lose weight, and I just like forgot about that part of me. And so one of my declarations, I'm a world-class athlete. And it occurred to me one day, I used to go to this guy who did biomechanics, and it was kind of like he worked with professional athletes, and different than a chiropractor, but similar outcomes. And he said to me, the difference between a pro athlete and an amateur athlete is that an amateur athlete works out as much as possible and recovers as little as possible. And a pro athlete recovers as much as possible and works out as little as possible. Talent-wise, they're not all that different. And that just blew my mind. So not that long ago, I was walking home from our pool with my daughter. And I can't remember what the thing was that like I hadn't done. And the phrase, I'm a world-class athlete, popped into my head. And I thought, I just have to go do it. Like it's about the recovery time. It's not about the fact that I didn't do it or I fell off the habit again or, whatever. A world-class athlete emphasizes recovery even more than effort. So I'm kind of newly like playing with this idea. So can you talk more about this idea that it's less about creating such perfect systems and structures in your life that have you never fall off, and more about how much can you shorten that time getting back on?
Yeah, for me, that's practice. That's where the practice is. So it starts with sitting on a cushion. All roads lead to sitting on a cushion. Enlightenment isn't sitting on a cushion, but training, so again, you're an athlete. So you train with weights, you train your body, training your mind to be able to be okay with itself. training your mind to be able to sit. And my mind wanders and runs around. Pema Chodron, the Buddhist nun who made meditation cool again, she talks about how she's the worst meditator in the world because her mind spins quite a bit. It's the act of sitting down, getting on the cushion, and sitting there for I have like New York finance people as clients whose toes are knees are tapping and they can't sit quietly, and I'm like, okay, so your first order of business is to do the 1 minute meditation. What's a 1 minute meditation? You're going to sit at the table with your cup of coffee or your cup of tea or whatever it is you drink, and you're not going to cross your legs, but you're going to put down your phone and you're going to breathe from your belly. Can you do that for 1 minute a day? A whole minute? The next week, can you do 2 minutes? Right? And I can't tell you how many meditation practices I've started, but I'm just saying, just sit down with a cup of coffee, no phone, and stare into space. Just remember to breathe deep, right? Get it past your chest, get it into your belly. And it's such a game changer. But now you have a practice, a homing device of not doing it's. I was talking to my younger son, the goofball who went to the other college and got into trouble. He's now studying to be a rabbi. So he started talking to me about this spiritual thing, how we have two souls, and we have the animal soul and we have the godly soul, and that the animal soul will will tell you to go do something that probably isn't in your best interest, and the animal soul will tell you to go do that. And what you do is you practice getting in touch with the godly soul, so that when the animal soul says, go do this, you can go, not a good idea. I'm going to go back over here. Right. So that's that practice. And I said, yeah, in recovery rooms, what we used to call that was, if the phone rings, you don't have to answer it.
I love that.
But that takes practice, because you got to know that you're not your thoughts, your feelings, your impulses, right? And the things that this monkey mind tells you to do. Now, when you start to get that separation, and you get that cause and effect separation, now you can start making choices. So now when you get off track with food, and you notice that you're stuffing donuts in your mouth, you get a pause. As soon as you get that pause, now you can go, okay, I can do something different. I think I'm going to call my best friend and say, I just ate 5 donuts. I'd like to not eat the rest of the box. Yeah. Go get help, right? So it starts with those kinds of things. And then for me, what I do is, again, left to my own devices, I don't know that I could accomplish anything. So the power of a mastermind, the power of a posse, who's in your group of people who care about you enough to hold you accountable to what you say is important to you. Yeah. So I meet with the same group of people for the last 6 years, every Friday at 2:00. Every Friday, we never miss. If we're on vacation, I'll be in Hawaii. I'll figure out the time change. I'll be on that call, and we keep each other accountable. That's what an AA meeting does. That's what masterminds do. Then I have an accountability partner that I speak to on Monday. She's a sales coach. She's brilliant. The thing I don't like, I love to create content and do all these things. I don't like to make sales calls for my business. I'm my own worst sales manager. I was great when I had an asshole sales manager. I told her, I'm my own sales manager. I'd rather go make another cup of coffee. So I have someone that I talk to on Monday. She says, how many people are you going to contact today? This week, how many people? And my sales calls are not like I'm trying to call someone to get someone to buy something. I'm just calling and checking on people and loving on people. That's my marketing, loving on people. It's pretty cool. So every time I get off of the phone with someone, they're happier, I'm happier. So it's not even something I'm afraid of. It's just something I don't feel like doing because I'm an introvert. I don't like that impulse to go talk to people. So I put things in place to help me do that willingness. Just because I don't feel like doing it doesn't mean I'm not committed. If I set someone up to make sure my systems support what I'm going to do, then I'm totally committed, no matter what I feel like.
I like that you landed on that, because one of the things that struck me a lot about the first time we met was when I asked you, how did you go from that to where you are? Your answer was, I said yes to help every time it was offered.
I forgot that. Yeah. I'm let people help me. I've just let people into my life. It's true.
Can you just share a little bit more? I mean, whatever feel, I just think that's really important because I don't think I let people help me as much as I could. And I think I know most people are the same.
So the question is, when someone calls you up for help, what's your response?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go.
After you help them, how do you feel?
Great.
Let's say they're really in deep shit and they're just so wrapped around the axle, or they've got a problem that is just, they don't know, they can't see themselves past it. And talking to you, they're like, hey, you know what? Now I know what to do. Oh, that's so cool. Thank you. What if it's really consequential? How do you feel?
Even better. Incredible.
Why would you deny that to someone else?
Yeah, just pure fucking ego.
Now, for me, my first bout with transformation, I was part of Est way back before it was Landmark, before it was all these other derivatives, and the trainer screamed at me, and she told me how selfish I was. I was such a self-centered, small person. As a going human concern, I was a -2 on a scale of 1 to 10. It was such a lovely experience. Actually saved my life, but it was, it had a little viciousness to it also.
Yeah,
But
wow.
she said, you're a taker. You're so selfish. You're so self-centered, and you think the world revolves around you and all this stuff. And then when I first got sober, I couldn't let anybody help me. I paid off all my debts. I never took money from anything. I always paid my way. I never let anybody pick me up. I didn't let anybody help me, except maybe my sponsor in AA, because I was like, I never want to be a taker again. I'm never going to be a taker again. I'm never going to be that selfish person. I can't be selfish. So I ended up being one of those people pleasing, I'm not on the list kind of people. And the conversation we had earlier was, I will always show up for somebody else. Why would I deprive someone else of that being there for me? But it was a kind of a race of self-worth and willingness, self-worth and willingness, self-worth and willingness. It had to catch up to it, that I'm worthy. I was reading Alan Cohen's book, Relax into Wealth, just after my divorce. I was actually depressed and suicidal, stone cold sober. This was years later. Again, this is why I say I'm improbable, because I had already made all this money. I already had 2 kids. I already got married and separated. And I was living in my apartment all by myself with my $7 IKEA tables. And I was reading Relax into Wealth by Alan Cohen. And he said, what if you treated yourself the way you treat everybody else in your life? And I looked around my apartment, right? And I didn't have a TV, and I had the old silverware from the basement of our house, and my ex and my kids lived in our $1 million house, and I gave them, I paid for everything. And I was just like, what if I treated them like I'm not even on the list? And I went out and bought a leather couch, and a big screen TV, and then a Lexus convertible. With my ex-wife's urging, me and my kids were just looking in the showroom, and my ex-wife said, you work so hard for everybody, you should have that. Now, those are external things, but that to me was to signify that I actually mattered.
Yeah.
So now what if I treated myself? And now that's turned to, if I take care of myself, I have more to give other people. I cannot give to people when I'm depleted. Now, I only learned that because of how many times I've got depleted, giving everything to everybody.
Yeah.
And then, when you're a recovering people pleaser and you give everything to everybody, then you blow up and you're a victim, and you're like, why does everybody take from me? And why doesn't anybody help me? And why does it? And my ex-wife used to say, well, you never seem to need help.
Yeah.
Oh,
I again, that is so relatable. I think maybe a year or so ago, somebody sent me a poem called The Strong Woman. And it was about, the strong woman who's always there, and, but like as soon as she disappears, everyone notices. And I was like, oh my God, that's me. And then it occurred to me, like, yeah, people aren't helping me because A, I think they're afraid to ask, and B, like, I don't think I come across that way. So that's a beautiful, story of the evolution of going from a real selfish human being to like depriving other people of helping you. I think that's a really important contrast.
Yeah, for me, it's a big deal. Now, again, in my new marriage, uh, uh, I don't look like I need help.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, I just don't look like I need help. So I have to remember that someone else in my world isn't going to think I need something.
Yeah.
So I have to tell John, my husband, I need help with this. Sometimes I even have to say, I just need you to be kind to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm at my wit's end, and I just need to be loved.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because I just look like I've got it all together, and I'm like, look, I'm going to fall apart,
Yeah.
and I'm going to admit that I'm not doing great at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get what I need, and then I can get what I need. But my ex-wife was really good. She was an ex-people pleaser, so she was rabid about setting boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to call her selfish and all these things until I realized, oh, I don't know how to ask for those things. So she was a role model for me.
Yeah.
Uh,
I really appreciate that about you because you are certainly someone who doesn't pretend to have it all together. And I really like that. I really like that because who does? One of my favorite phrases I heard a long time ago was anyone who has their shit together is standing in it at the time
or lying.
or lying. That always cracks.
Like the shinier the shoes, the messier, like it's just.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think my last question for you is what did you not prioritize in your life before that let me make this question articulate. That you tried to find through ineffective avenues that you now prioritize and makes a difference.
Oh, I spent all of my life trying to quell fear. I spent all of my life trying to squash the fear and squash the pain. So I wasn't actually even trying to build a life, to live a life, to do anything. I was just trying to numb the internal pain and fear. When that was manageable, I was spent my life just trying to prove that I wasn't what I was. And it wasn't until maybe a decade ago that I started to realize that it's my job to create my life. That was a revelation to me, that it's my job to create a life worth living. Our mutual friend Steve Hardison said that to me in one of our sessions. Mark, it seems like you got all this going on, and it was even after I had my freedom experience with non-duality and all that stuff. And Steve said, what I noticed, Mark, is you haven't built a life worth living. And I was so happy being free of all the pain and the fear and all that stuff, because that was gone, that I didn't really care. Like, none of this is real. So like, why should I care about all this stuff? And he helped me see that actually I'm still probably going to be here, whether I'm ineffable or not. Mark is still going to be hanging around doing stuff. So why don't you go create something? And it took me a couple months after that conversation to realize, oh, I get it. This is as real as it's going to get. I may be ineffable. Mark may be a figment of my imagination and made up, and he's still here. That's the dichotomy, the two truths at the same time. So I might as well create something. And that's when I got really excited about my business again and about my content and the things that I'm doing. Is what can I do? What can I create? How many people can I influence, even if they're not real? How many people can I influence and make smile and lighten their load and change the way the trajectory of their life's going? So that became a game instead of I have to fix the world. Because I don't have to fix the world. The world's perfect. There's an old Jewish proverb that says, God only lets you see the back of the tapestry, because if you saw the front, no, he only lets you see the front of the tapestry. Now I don't even know my own analogy, but basically, if we knew what was going on, we'd know everything was perfect. But the other Jewish proverb, I'm steeped. My son's back from Israel for a little while, so I'm steeped in Judaism these days. Is that walk through the world knowing God is everything, knowing God is all, but act as if there is no God.
That's
And that
powerful.
really helped me ground this whole thing to, all right, I'm in the playground and I'm going to play as hard and as fun and as fast as I can.
And is that if you could articulate what is it now that makes your life worth living? Like what are the top three things?
Um, I want to see what happens.
Mm,
I'm getting close to being a grandparent. Like my kids are, my son's engaged. I have a grand dog. My grandniece and nephew were just born. I'm kind of excited about what's happening. I want to see what I can create.
mm.
I sit down and I write an essay every day. I
There's
joined the
no,
challenge
no.
30 essays in 30 days. I'm on essay 42. I signed up for another round because I'm just astounded at what comes through my fingers onto the page.
Mm,
I want to see what I can create. I want to see what this thing Mark is capable of now. At
mm,
59 years old, I feel like completely renewed as to what can I do here? Do I want to be a trapeze artist? Do I want to influence people? Do I want to be on Oprah? Like, what do I want to do? So I'm kind of enjoying that. My relationship is thriving, and we're going to Hawaii on a honeymoon finally. And like I'm just so happy. I love my home. I love my business. I love what I speak on. I love what I do. Um, I have a saltwater fish tank. Like that was my dream, and I actually made it happen. And I have a whole coral reef in my living room. So yeah, that's what makes me excited. Is just what can I create next? It's just really fun.
I love that you brought Mark back in there. What can this guy Mark do? Like, I think that's really cool. Before you tried to leave him behind in the dust, and now he's kind of the like, what can this thing do?
Yeah, that's kind of the evolution, the integration of humanity and spirit is kind of the next thing for me, because it was for a while it's too painful to go back into this body
Mhm.
and have the thoughts and the feelings and all the things that still hang out. And now to learn to live with the two at the same time is so juicy and beautiful.
Mm, it's brilliant. So, for those who are as inspired by you as I am and love hanging out with you as much as I do, where can they do that?
They can go to my website. Everything's on my website, markjsilverman.com, mark the letter J Silverman.com, or follow me on social media, because the essays are coming out one a day, and I don't plan on stopping until the next book is written.
That's fantastic. And I'm grateful for that because I read them every single day and they're awesome.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, Mark. This was fun.
This is an honor. I'm blown away that you asked me, and I love that we got connected.
Me too. Thanks.